Good morning. This is the New York City Board of Standards and Appeals Public Review Session for May 19th, 2014. We'll begin with the special order calendar. Item number 1, 14292BZ, 473-541 6th Street, Brooklyn.
We will defer the decision, and Becca, why don't you just give an update on what's going on and why we're deferring?
Okay, sure. As you may recall, at the last hearing on this issue, on April 8th, counsel for the opposition stated that the opposition sought certain evidence from the hospital in this case, and said that they would seek to subpoena that evidence if it wasn't produced. The board closed the hearing on the matter and set a decision date and did not request that information, requested a limited, set a submission schedule for some limited information from the parties, which did not include that being sought by the opponent's counsel. So several weeks after that hearing date, the counsel for the opposition followed up on the statements made at hearing and reached out to staff here seeking that the board subpoena this evidence from the hospital. We responded by rejecting the request because to the extent that the board has the authority to subpoena information in its hearing process, that authority is limited to testimony and not documents, which is what the opposition seeks. Then the opponent's counsel made the subpoena request to the hospital, who also rejected the subpoena request, stating that the opponent did not have the authority to issue a subpoena in this manner. So last week, the opponent's counsel went to court seeking judicial intervention and to compel the hospital to produce these documents. So the judge gave both parties additional time to brief this issue about whether a subpoena is appropriate in this context, and that issue will be heard on June 4th. So as part of this motion before the court, the judge also stayed the board from acting. So the board was supposed to act today on this case, but at least at June 4th, we'll have some answer about when we may proceed.
Yes, Chris.
Just a comment and a question. I'm troubled by an opposition party seeking judicial intervention so early and keeping this board from acting as we are, permitted to do under the law. And so I hope that portion of the court's rulings staying us from acting is vigorously opposed by the Corporation Counsel on our behalf. I just want to put that on the record.
We are.
Good, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, good. Continued hearing items. Item number 2, 42770BZ, 3801 and 3805 Beach Channel Drive, Queens.
All right, the applicant's asked for an adjournment.
Item number 3, 11-93BZ, 4645 Kissimmee Boulevard, Queens.
Questions and comments?
Just a question. There are a couple of items for which the community board has taken a position that appears to be at variance with the position taken by the applicant. First of all, whether or not, and I think I asked this at the first hearing, whether or not there's a use group 9 catering hall, and the applicant says no. And also, the applicant says they do not serve alcohol, but the community board apparently thought that they did, and that they were serving alcohol without the proper license. So I would think we should just get the applicant to confirm their position and just to respond to those once and for all, so we can lay those issues aside.
That seems fine. I think the issue of alcohol, it seems that the community board's actually reached out to the state liquor authorities as well. Our previous grant made sure that this is not supposed to be a catering hall,
Right.
And we can ask them to confirm that. Right, other questions and comments? Yes.
Yeah, the applicant, I guess, has asked for 6 to 12 months to obtain their PA and their CO. And I guess my question is that does that time frame include getting rid of the open violations that they have? They've got significant, and it wasn't clear whether or not they could actually obtain their CO without getting rid of.
Right, I think they've already addressed, I think, 6 of the violations, and they've got a contract on board to remove the rest of the violations. So seems to me that, in fact, to get their CFO and PA, they would have to do that, so probably they're asking for maybe 12 months is more realistic.
I think so, yes.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, I did go to the site. I know that they are now proposing an area for trash, which I think is sorely needed because, in fact, it was in terrible shape while I was there. And I think they should just give us a little more detail about the trash container. The site also has some graffiti and it's messy, but they should try and maintain that. Okay.
New cases, item number 4, 775-85BZ, 133-33 Brookville Boulevard, Queens.
All right, this application for an extension of term, the board had granted a variance to allow for a large commercial building in a district which subsequently has been rezoned partially to C1. But the commercial building exceeds the floor area that's allowed. It was a building that was being constructed by the School Construction Authority and then went into foreclosure and was taken over. The board had granted this variance, and it included parking with a layout, and now the applicant has asked for an extension of term as well as an amendment to revise their parking layout. And what's happened over time is that they've taken over various properties which are not at this point being included as a part of the variance lot, but their representation is that portions of that lot are in the commercial district and can be used for commercial parking. The area that's in the residential district, which is a small portion, will be used for parking for community facility use that is in the building. And so what they're asking us to do is amend the site plan so that, in fact, the boundaries which were previously fenced off with landscaping is removed and they can use the site more comprehensively. Now, I'd gone to the site and actually, it seems, as you know, the current owner is trying to upgrade this building and bring new tenants. There are some tenants there already. The parking lot is actually well used. And it seems to me the idea of allowing them to vary the site plan to allow for more parking is actually a good thing. Otherwise, there would be that spillover onto the streets. All right, questions and comments? Yes, Susan?
I didn't have a problem with them expanding into the other lots. I guess my question is that if they're removing some of the landscaping, do they have, and now that it's a larger lot, are there regulations that they need to comply with in terms of landscaping the lot? I know that they probably have sort of, landscape islands and that sort of thing, but have they done that? Have they looked at that?
The parking lots really are under our jurisdiction, and so it seems to me that trying to convert the parking lot to follow the new rules is going to be onerous. Because of the buffers that you need, and in fact, the briars. Right, exactly. But I think, in spirit, the idea of providing landscaping on the streets with their street trees, particularly where you have the residential, and even though some portions of that lot are not strictly before us, I think it'd be helpful if we understand that they intend to, right, exactly, extend the landscaping on those edges that are are owned by the same applicant, but is being used as a part of the parking, but is not really a part of the variance lot. And I think that will help. I also suggest that we ask them to just notify the neighbors because there's really a row of residential buildings on that side, and we can get a sense if there are any issues and concerns they have regarding the hours of operation of the parking lot, or any other impacts if there's noise or lighting.
I would agree with that. I think it's just logical to eliminate the original buffering requirement because they are now using these adjacent lots for parking. But I certainly would support the position that you two have both stated about additional new buffering landscaping. They're also asking for the term of the variance to be removed, I believe.
Yes, and because of that, I think, again, we should ask them to notify the neighbors. The idea of asking for the term, and I guess there's a large commercial building there, and if this was a new case, I'm not sure the board would necessarily impose a term on it.
Right.
Because there's significant investment that takes place, and it's hard to imagine that the board is going to say no to having that use continue. as we've done in the past, where applicants have asked us to remove the term, we have notified the neighbors and got a sense from them whether there are any concerns about this case.
Right, in case there are any issues that we don't know about.
Exactly.
I think that's fine.
All right.
Item number 5, 245-03BZ, 160-11 Willets Point Boulevard, Queens.
All right, this is for McDonald's. There's an extension of term. Questions? Commissioner Otley Brown?
I did not visit the site, but it seems as if there is a lot of signage in terms of billboards and banners that are not being accounted for and are probably way over what is allowed. So if
Okay.
they could address that issue, that would be great.
Okay. Any other comments? All
I
right.
had the same issue.
Okay. Yes.
Next one? Okay, sorry, I was waiting for you. Item number 6, 32609BZ, 37-10 Union Street, Queens.
They're asking for an extension of time to complete construction. As you know, the board, by statute, had limited them to 4 years. I think the board recognizes this is a very large project and important for the city, and I'm not surprised that they've come back to us for more time. Are there any questions and comments?
No.
Okay.
Item number 7, 49-11BZ, 135 West 20th Street, Manhattan.
This is an application for an amendment to allow, or rather legalize Barry's Boot Camp that has enlarged since its approval from this board a few years ago. Are there questions or concerns?
No.
Okay.
Appeals calendar, decision items, item number 8, 16413A, 307 West 79th Street, Manhattan.
We'll defer the decision to either June 10th.
Continued hearing items, item number 9, 29613A, 280 Bond Street, Brooklyn.
The applicant has asked for an adjournment, and we'll set a new schedule tomorrow.
Item number 10, 33-14A, 902 Quinton Road, Brooklyn.
All right, we received submissions both from the appellant and from the Buildings Department, and I must say I'm somewhat disappointed by the inability of maybe both parties to give us a really full and comprehensive analysis of the legislative history. I think the board recognized or noted last time that there's some real contradictions in the way this text is structured. There was a text that was adopted for Ocean Parkway that existed in, I guess, in the 1970s, which noted that community facility buildings would be regulated by the underlying residential bulk regulations of Article 2, Chapter 3. And in that same paragraph, it noted that the community facilities could actually seek an authorization, or certification rather, to increase the bulk to the community facility bulk of Article 2, Chapter 4, under a certain section. That happened in 1973. It seemed the intent at that time was that whoever was going to come under the limited community facility regs would also have the option of then seeking an authorization to gain the full community facility FAR. The text was modified in, I believe it was in the 90s, and the text change was really done for two reasons. One is to allow quality housing to be within Ocean Parkway Special District, and the second was that they were creating the sub-district. We received a text amendment report from the Buildings Department, but really the lead report was not included, which was a zoning report. And I think, therefore, any discussion of this project in its totality is hard to tell from this report. So I would encourage them to actually look at the main report here. But whatever I could at least call out, at that time, they created these 4 exceptions to the rule. All the exceptions are based on residential districts. And to me, it seems very unclear why the drafters of the text for a land use purpose would allow the residential districts to have more flexibility than the commercial districts. And so you have this real odd contradiction. You have residential districts that are restricted, commercial districts that are restricted, commercial districts like the C8 district, which are unrestricted, and then residential districts have the ability to also have a greater FAR. And so this little group of commercial districts have the most onerous requirements for community facility. That seems to me, I don't understand the land use logic for that, and I think the Buildings Department's arguments I did not find persuasive. My feeling is that either the text was modified and it had an unintended result, or because these 4 exceptions were only for residential districts, the main text was never supposed to apply to commercial districts, and commercial districts were going to be treated the same way as C8 districts. In the absence of really understanding this full story, and we did reach out to city planning because we were hoping that they would weigh in on something that is really their bailiwick. They understand this district better than any of us and have obviously put forward this text to shed some light on it. We haven't received anything from them as yet, but in the absence of that, I think this board is really going to have to struggle in either giving deference to the Buildings Department, their ability to interpret the text, or to rule in favor of an applicant because there's ambiguity and we should be ruling in favor of the applicant. So at this point, I'd like both parties to at least give us some more information and speak to this issue. I don't know about the other board members. I'm very concerned about text. It has an implication elsewhere, but I do have a concern that the land use rationale here seems very much at odds with the way that at least the text is drafted.
Has city planning indicated that they don't choose to weigh in on this, or we just haven't heard back from them?
We haven't heard back from them, and staff has reached out to them. I think they're looking at it.
Okay. I think that would be helpful.
It would, and it may very well be that the way it's been drafted did have an unintended result, and therefore maybe they should look at doing a text amendment. Yes, Commissioner O'Brien?
No,
Okay.
no comment.
Okay, and Susan, anything?
No, totally agree.
Okay.
New cases, item number 11, 51-13A, 10 Woodward Avenue, Queens.
All right, questions and comments? We did get a fire department, DOT, and DEP sign-off. Any
Right.
concerns?
I don't have any concern with this. I mean, DOT has made it clear that there's no intention to widen the street. I don't really understand the community board's opposition. I don't think their reasons were clearly articulated.
Right.
But I see this as a relatively benign application.
Right. In fact, if you look at really the portion of the street that's being built upon, it's a tiny corner, and it really is. It's a situation where DOT is not taking the widening into consideration, and they're not planning to do it. They should
I
be
don't
able to
see
build
any
on
other
it.
implications for the neighborhood.
I don't either. Okay.
Item number 12, 59-13A, 11-30, 143rd Street, 134th Place, Queens.
We received DOT sign-off, DEP sign-off. Fire department has said they want sprinklers, and we have heard back from them, Tony, or not as yet?
For the applicant?
Yes.
They'll have to revise the site plans.
Okay, they should be providing us with revised site plans. Are there other concerns? Okay.
Zoning calendar, decision items, item number 13, 26312BZ and 26412A, 232 and 222 City Island, Bronx.
Right, I think the 26412A has been withdrawn. So, okay. At the last hearing, or the last date of this, which was last week, we agreed that we would reopen this case, so we can reopen and have a discussion about their recent proposal. As you know, the building was significantly reduced in size to be now more compatible with the FAR that's allowed under our district, which is just across the street. And they've also brought the height down as well. We had laid it over because the community board wanted to look at it, and they will be here tomorrow to speak on this issue.
And the decrease in the number of dwelling units is really significant.
Very
from what they
significant,
walk-
yes.
Walk in on.
Yes.
And I think that has really important implications for the neighborhood character finding. I was very uncomfortable with this application when it came in the door. But I think, mostly due to your pushback, they've modified it in meaningful ways.
Right, and I think the other issue which was really helpful was that this project actually shifted gears, and we really looked at it as if it was a private application. There were a lot of questions about the nonprofit, that we had lots of concerns about how they could justify a program, and they really looked at it more in terms of a hardship case where you have construction costs and you needed a change of use to offset those costs. And by looking at it that way, we were able to really square it down to the minimum variance, which would still make it feasible. Excuse me.
Item number, I'm sorry. Go on.
Yes, please go ahead.
Item number 14, 22813BZ, 157 Columbus Avenue, Manhattan.
All right, we had reopened this last time it was here, and we discussed the conditions. I don't think the conditions have changed. As you know, except for two, which I think seem reasonable. One is that the applicant said they wanted up till 10 o'clock, Monday to, well, they actually said they wanted from 6 to 10 every day of the week, including Saturdays and Sundays. They said that their classes really stop at 9 o'clock, and then there are people there and take some time for them to leave. I think at the hearing, their operator actually said it remains open to 9:30. So I recommend that we allow them to go from 6 o'clock to 9:30, 5 days a week, and then on Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 6, as we had previously proposed. The other condition that I think we should include had to do with the issue regarding competitions or events. As you know, this is a fairly small PC compared to the ones that we've seen. It's about 6,500 square feet. The operator has no intentions of having events as represented on the record. So it's a bit of belt and suspenders, but I think it'll make the community board happy and the residents happy that we include that. We had several other conditions, which I know we had laid out last time, and I think the opposition was appreciative of those conditions.
And just remind me again what our term of this.
2 years.
2 years. Okay, thank you.
Item number 15, 27513BZ, 404, 406 Broadway, Manhattan.
All right, any questions or issues with this case?
They're moving the sign 18 inches behind the glass door so that it's not, they don't have to go to landmarks for
Yes. Okay.
Item number 16, 289-13BZ, 473, 541 6th Street, Brooklyn.
Defer the decision?
Item number 7, 1-14BZ, 525 West 42nd Street, Manhattan.
We weren't waiting for anything? Any questions?
Item number 18, 2-14, 555 6th Avenue, Manhattan.
Any issues with this? No. Okay.
Item number 19, 4-14BZ, 1065 Avenue of the Americas, Manhattan.
Any issues with this? Okay, good.
Continued hearing items. Item number 20, 78-11BZ, and 33 through 37, 12A, 78-70 Winchester Boulevard, Queens.
The applicants asked for an adjournment.
Item number 21, 54-12BZ, 65-39 102nd Street, Queens.
Okay, the applicant revised their proposal. I think it's much better. And as you know, they had asked for yard waivers and as well as not really FAR, they had asked for yard waivers, but it did have an implication on the level of waiver in terms of height, and so we had asked them to look at a lesser variance. And they looked at two alternatives, and they would like to have the community facility on the ground floor and residential above on floor. Commissioner Otley-Brown?
And they also revised their financials to go with it. They did actually reduce their site value down to $375,000. And they did show that the community facility would be more more feasible than the residential alternative, probably because they can actually rent the first floor as well as the cellar for community facility, which increases the income and makes it a better project overall.
Okay. Are there any concerns? No. All right. So after many hearings, I think we can close this one. Okay.
Item number 20 and 23, 22 and 23, 12413BZ and 12513BZ, 95 and 97 Grattan Street, Brooklyn.
They revised their study, and I think it's much better. And I don't know about the other commissioners, I feel comfortable with the analysis that they've given us.
I agree.
Okay, good. I think that was the only outstanding issue.
Item number 24, 19313BZ, 4770 White Plains Road, the Bronx.
They've asked for an adjournment.
Item number 25, 21313BZ, 385860 Victory Boulevard, Staten Island.
All right, I think this is for the first time the applicant made some attempt to give us a context for this, which we've been asking for. And I would grudgingly say this is fine. I think there's some aspects to this particular context which may warrant a building that may depart strictly from what we'd like to see, which is buildings that emulate residential buildings. This is very institutional in its look, but they've made some attempt to provide sloped roofs towards the residential portion and the more modern side towards Victory Boulevard, which has a different context.
Yes, Victory Boulevard has a very mixed, somewhat difficult to define
Yes.
context because there are vacant lots, there are commercial uses, there are different size and shaped buildings. So I think you pushed them about as hard as you
I
can
know,
on this
I
one.
think so. So if the board members have no other concerns, we can close this one.
Item number 26, 3-310-13BZ, 459 East 149th Street, the Bronx.
I know we had some concerns about their as-of-right, that last time they had shown as a residential as-of-right, and not a commercial as-of-right, which didn't really make much sense. Commissioner Otley Brown, I know they've given some alternatives now, and I know you had raised some concerns.
Well, it seems to me like they've made it a little more complicated than it really needed to be. I think the issue is really 771 students require 3 means of egress. I think putting the egress anywhere in the center of the classroom strip is going to disturb the shape and size of the classrooms and make it a less viable project. It would probably make the programmatic needs suffer somewhat because you don't have optimal class sizes. And I think they probably could have stopped right there, but they did give us some other conversation and about 2 means of egress, only allowing them to have 2,000 square feet of classroom space. And I gotta say, I lost the argument right there. I don't know where they were trying to go with that.
Right, I don't understand whether it's as soon as you go beyond 2,000 square feet, you trigger the third means of egress. I don't know, if that's the case, they should just say it.
Right.
Because that would make it then very clear for us that, in fact, unless they put the third means of egress, they're very limited. They put the third means of egress, the most appropriate and least obstructive place is to put it in the portion which is in in the M zone.
Right.
And that would do it.
Way back in the corner.
Right, because originally, they had linked the third means of egress to the student body size in terms of actual people. So that's why I was thrown when
Right,
they started
right.
showing space.
Okay, but they really should clarify that to us, but let's try and see if we can make them revise that and try and close this case as well. Okay.
Item number 27, 319-13BZ, 1800 Park Avenue, Manhattan.
Okay, they revised, they went back and took a look at the parking demand, and it's, I think, a more fine-tuned, nuanced study, where they're looking more at the apartment-type buildings as opposed to maybe single-family and two-family homes. And they believe that, in fact, the car ownership is less, and therefore, as a result of that, I think they've looked at, they said it's about 17.9%, and they've adjusted it, and so they believe that this building is similar to those and would only require 118 spots, and they're providing 123. Commissioner Otley Brown, I know you had some concerns about this.
Yes, I did, and being that they did redo the parking study and refined it in terms of the size of the development as well as the proximity to the public transportation options, I'm okay with that.
Okay. It is one of the sites that is very well connected by transportation. It's just
Literally at their front door.
literally at their front door, and within, I don't know, 5-minute walking distance, you can access the trains. It's a real prime spot that way. Okay, so we can consider closing this case as well.
Item number 28, 325-13BZ, 3170 Webster Avenue, the Bronx.
All right, any issues with this case? I think they tried to explain to us why they believe they don't have a parking requirement, and anything else? Does the board members have any concerns? I know Commissioner Montanez had some concerns about sound attenuation, but, I don't know, it seems here they have, and it's a supermarket, school, I didn't have any concerns. It's basically a non-residential building. Okay.
New cases. Item number 29, 266-13BZ, 515 East Fifth Street, Manhattan. God bless.
All right, the applicant is asking for a variance for floor area. What's currently, of course, all the board members know this case, and probably people in the audience do as well. They're now asking for a variance. They are planning to reduce what is currently a 6-story plus penthouse building by removing the penthouse. They're following that lead based on the board's approval of MDLs for buildings that are very similar on East 6th Street. However, they want to retain the 6th floor. It does comply with the sliver rules, but as a result of rezonings that took place during the point or after the building was constructed, during the period of our appeals, in fact, the zoning right now has been reduced. So what could previously be allowed, in this case, I think up to 4 FAR, now is reduced to 3, and they're at 3.5 with the reduction of the penthouse. Their case for variance is primarily based on good faith reliance on permits issued by the Buildings Department. Comments or questions? Vice Chair?
Well, I went back and reread the Jane Estates case, and we all know the tortured history of this particular building. But I think each and every time, either the tenants or the electeds or other people concerned about what was happening in this building, each time they went to the buildings department kept coming back to the applicant basically and saying, you're good to go. And I think that the number of times that the governmental entity says that to a property owner is significant. And I think that is largely what the Jane Estates case tells us, that in general, there's no estoppel of the city government based on prior actions. There does come a time when you have to have a reasonable standard where you say to a property owner, you've been told yes so many times, for us to now say no reaches a point of being unreasonable.
And I think the board is aware that we, in fact, before us, have heard the Buildings Department repeatedly say and propose the board that, in fact, these permits were issued validly at that time, and they were supporting their interpretation of the sliver rule. I think from that perspective, and different from other cases where people have come to us for good faith reliance, I think in this case it's hard to ignore the fact that the Building Department really did give them repeated assurances, as the Vice Chair said.
Having said that,
Yes.
I would like assurances and a timetable for the removal of the penthouse. Every time this building's come before us, I think we've asked, have you started that process yet? And I think the answer was sort of, we'll get to it. So I would just like to see that removal process undertaken forthwith.
Okay, other comments or questions? Commissioner Otley Brown, I know you had some concerns about the financials.
Right, yes. I had a comment about how they calculated the site value. I found it to be very complicated, and I'm not really sure that We can control for what income they were using. It's not clear whether it was the original 5-story building or the enlarged building with the penthouse, without the penthouse. And I thought it would be much simpler if they could just do a land sales value plus a depreciated 5-story building, and then they can add the development costs for the 6th floor and the penthouse, then demo costs for the penthouse, set that against the income from either the 5-story or the 6-story building. And I think that should really show us the relative feasibility, and it's much easier.
Okay. I think we can tell them to do that and revise it. Other questions? All right. I would just say one thing about the set of papers, and I know why they've put all this information in here, but it seems they really should just focus on the sliver rule and the zoning variance. And I know they've given us a lot of information about the multiple dwelling law, but strictly speaking, we want to make sure that the record for this case is based on the zoning waiver. I just want to note one other point which the applicant made, that by removing the penthouse, this building would comply with the sliver rule and height and setback and every other respect. It would be compliant with the R7B, and the only waiver that they're asking for is floor area. Okay.
Item number 30, 32613BZ, 1616 Whitestone Expressway, Queens.
All right, this is a case for reduction in parking. Questions and comments? Commissioner Otley-Brown?
I have a question about the parking demand study.
Yes.
In terms of the modal split, it says 57.7% is auto and 15.4% bus and 15% subway. And this area seems quite remote in terms of proximity to a subway. It would be nice to hear exactly what subway they're referencing, because I think because of its remote location, I think there's going to be far more auto usage than they're actually estimating. And they're actually, I think the subway usage might actually convert to auto usage. So if they can talk about what were the bases for their assumptions, that would be great.
Okay. Any other comments? No. All right.
Item number 31, 32713BZ, 1504 Coney Island Avenue, Brooklyn.
The applicant has asked for an adjournment or postponement.
Item number 32, 9-14BZ, 4168 Broadway, Manhattan.
All right, questions and comments? This is a special permit as well as special permit for PCE as well as for an extension of the 25 feet district boundary. Yes, go ahead.
No,
I always ask about the A finding under 7352, and in this particular case, I think the applicant addressed it adequately.
Right, I mean, if you look at the building, it's interesting. It's a full lot coverage building, it's basically a garage. And there's that not really, it's actually kind of a trapezoidal piece which is in the residential district. And it's very hard to convert that to anything.
To anything.
Because neither, even though you can technically convert it, it's a very narrow strip, and on top of that, it really is blocked. It has no...
You have no access.
You have no light and air except a small piece of the frontage, and it's very deep, it's 100 feet deep. I thought those are points that he should have made in his A finding, just to reinforce the actual physicality of that space and why it would be very difficult to convert. But I didn't have any issues with that, and they did show the chain of ownership, which is required as a threshold. Okay.
Item number 33, 17-14BZ, 600 McDonald Avenue, Brooklyn.
This is a variance for the school to enlarge by about 52,000 square feet. The board had granted floor area waiver, I guess in the 1997, 1998. That was built for the school, and now they're asking to add 2 more floors. It will increase the floor area from 2.02 to 2.2 to 4.02. The district allows 2 FAR. And it has a whole set of bulk waivers, including height and setback. They're going to 65 feet. The limit is 35 feet. And in terms of yards, where they're providing no rear yards and several other yards, lot coverage as well is being exceeded. Questions and comments?
It's, it's enormous for the district, and I would like to see some further statistical analysis of how the student body growth has taken place in recent years, so that we can have a better sense of what the future needs are. And I mean, I realize that there's no gym, auditorium, whatever, sort of standard issue things that schools, private and public, have. And so I'm certainly supportive of having the school grow, but I'd like to see a stronger nexus between the waiver sought and the program. In the past, we've asked for charts. I mean, we have plans that are labeled classroom, office.
Right, right.
But I think the program needs to be set forth with more particularity, given the size and nature of the waivers that are sought.
I agree. I think that when you're asking for 52,000 square feet over and above what the district allows, I think you should actually explain to us what that's going to be used for. And it would be helpful if they just tell us how much of that is going towards classroom space with actual numbers. I think the A finding was very general, quite frankly, and both in terms of, as the vice chair said, about statistics to show the growth of the school and the need to now accommodate, instead of 1,000 students, 1,500 students. And at the same time, I think it's just lacked any kind of analysis of spatial needs and how that translates into the square footage. It is a very big building. And I think while we do give deference, they still have to provide enough evidence that supports their programmatic needs. Yes, Dara?
I think they have to do a better job at addressing the character finding.
Yes.
Because they make reference to a four-story school and a four-story building as if those are the only two buildings that abut this, and saying that since they're of a certain height, this is really going to be fine. But when you actually look at the radius diagram, there are so many two-story homes that are going to be affected by this bulk. So they don't really address that at all, and if they don't address that, they certainly don't try and look for a solution that would be sensitive to them. I mean, you've got that yard space that you're using as play space, but you've got a roof playground that goes the entire length of the building that you are going to retain. And it just seems to me that you need to give a little, perhaps get rid of the street-level playground and move some of that bulk into that space and lessen the effect on the two-story homes.
I completely agree. I know that we asked them to look at it, they explained why they couldn't, but I think your point is well taken, that they are now, in fact, increasing the amount of play space by having the entire roof, and why aren't they taking that into consideration and removing the space at ground floor level? That actually gives you quite a lot of space because it's 2 floors, and they should really consider reducing that bulk. I think also, if you want to make an argument that the size and shape of this building is compatible, it doesn't have to be, all of the buildings don't have to be the similar scale, but if you want to say that in the larger neighborhood you will find buildings, institutions that are larger, then I think you need to provide that geographically with a larger map, with photographs. I think you should talk about the FARs, and I think you should talk about the height, because here we're going up to 65 feet. I think the other thing, and just on the C finding, is that there's no acknowledgement at all of the impact on surrounding buildings. What does it mean for going up to 65 feet at the lot line? And so their C finding essentially says that we should look at Cornell, and that's it, Westchester Reform, Cornell. But I think they have to give us more than that. Yes, Susan?
No, I tend to agree with the comments that Commissioner Otley Brown has made. I was not convinced that the design that they've shown us, is the proper design in context. I agree that space on the ground floor, it's very, I'm not clear as to why they would have this open playground at grade when they have a playground sort of, at the roof level, and not utilize that open space to be able to put program spaces in and mitigate the height of the building. So they didn't even attempt to try to explain that. And so I think that there might be other sort of design solutions that would help them achieve their programmatic goals, but would mitigate the bulk and size of the building.
Okay. Item number 34, 18-14BZ, 1245 Fulton Street, Brooklyn.
All right, any questions, comments about this case? This case? It looked pretty straightforward.
Okay. This concludes the May 19th, 2014 executive session.